Hello everyone, today I want to talk about familiar surroundings, and it kind of links into the last video I made on fitting in and feeling like you fit in somewhere. And the fact is that we can't avoid change in our lives. Sometimes it can seem really daunting when change happens. Quite honestly, the more you start experiencing change, the more used to it you get. So you hear stories of people who move house, a lot of things, and they get really used to new environments quickly, and that definitely helps throwing yourself into more experiences. But a lot of the time when you experience change, it can start to feel like you're taking steps backwards in your life maybe, or in my case, if I experience change, then I guess it really affects my anxiety levels, and you can start to get a lot more anxious and a lot more on edge if you're in new places, new environments. It can definitely feel like you're taking steps backwards, sometimes really big steps backwards. But sometimes in life when you start getting into a negative spiral and you start looking at things and you keep thinking this is getting worse and worse, and it's a vicious circle basically. It's getting more and more negative, but it's just as easy to get into a positive spiral, a positive circle, I shall now call it, where things start getting better and better. That's an important thing to remember, is that it's easy to start feeling worse about stuff, but you can start feeling better about it just as easy. But if you feel like you're going in the wrong direction in your life, like I'm going in the wrong direction on this circuit right here, then maybe sometimes you'll start to realise that it was the right direction after all. I mean, at first you're going to make a lot of mistakes, like I've been doing, wobbling around and losing control. But after a bit, you might realise, well, I've got to this point in my life now. I wouldn't be here without this change that's happened. And going forward, this is actually the right direction, because even if my direction changes again, I've still taken this path to get here, and it's made me a better person out of it. Did that make sense? I hope it did. Yeah, it can feel really frustrating when you get relapses, I guess, in your behaviours, and like I said, they're not always so noticeable, but you can start doing little tiny things which maybe it's not a conscious thing that you're doing, maybe it's just like a subconscious thing, or maybe if you've got anxiety you start panicking a lot more in situations and you don't notice it, because quite often with anxiety it kind of builds up. It's kind of like a really gradual gaining of tension, rather than just all of a sudden you're extremely anxious about something. That might happen as well if you've changed to a completely different location, or you moved home or something, but it can be really frustrating when you always feel like you're going backwards. But it's always important to try and flip that negative into a positive. My experience of change though is that the more you expose yourself to it, the more ready you are for it the next time it happens again, and the more used to it you can get. And sometimes I can lose that rhythm really quickly if I've stayed doing the same kind of thing, the same kind of routine for a few weeks. You can start slipping back into habits. You can start adjusting to change really quickly once it does start happening, and you'll find you'll get used to all these different changes that go on in your life. It is difficult when you can't control the changes. They happen in front of you and you've got no choice but to go along with it. It feels like you're being dragged into different directions, but as much as life can sometimes throw these things at you and say, start pulling you all over the place, it can also just as easily start working in your favour. And that's always something to remember when you're starting to feel a lot more down, is that you're in a down moment. That's okay. It's okay to accept that. But you can also get moments where everything will start clicking into place a lot more easily, and you will find that happens. I mean, of course it helps opening up about this kind of thing. So if you have anybody to talk to about it, and let them know how you're feeling, because as much as a lot of people don't like opening up about their emotions, I think they'll find that once they do, they actually kind of did. I mean, I think it helps me a lot making videos like these and expressing my inner thoughts to everybody. But if you can find a few people around you who you can talk to about this, or it doesn't even have to be somebody close to you really. I mean, you could open up to anybody about these kinds of things, and you don't have to feel a sense of being ashamed to talk about mental health problems, because that's a stigma, and that's a stigma we want to get rid of, isn't it? And finding a new way for modern society to communicate about it is a challenge, but it's happening. So yeah, I can't really emphasise enough how much talking helps. It it can be hard making these videos because I sometimes feel like I'm just spitting out words. Maybe I'm being like really instructive and saying this is what works, but of course there's lots of different things that work for different people, so it feels tough to like direct people, but I want to open up a conversation about it. That's what I'm trying to do. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you again in the next video. I have a piano next to me and it's really tempting to start using it. I feel like that's a rule. If you're in a room for piano, you have to